Hi guys, up in my workroom. Just been doing a little session of stripping the motors out of these Oral-B Pulsar vibrating toothbrushes. They're disposable vibrating toothbrushes. You normally throw them away once you've worn out the heads on them, but I like to save them and get the motors out of them. It's not really an economic thing to do. You can buy this sort of motor very cheaply on eBay. You probably get 4 or 5 for £1 or something. But being as I actually use these toothbrushes, it seems a shame to throw them away while they've still got the motors in them. So every so often, when I've got a bit of a collection together, I sit down with this little jig that I've made up. It's just a piece of wood with a hole drilled in it, the right size for the motor to sit in. And then that slot goes between the motor and the little vibrating, or the little weight that makes it vibrate. And then I tap down through the top of it with a suitable sized piece of metal. I actually use the shaft from one of these that I broke. So it's the right size shaft, and you just tap it down through, and that pushes the shaft down through the weight, and the motor drops out into the hole. I've got a video on how to do that, so I'll put a link in the video description. But now that I've done this, I use a couple of these motors to power this little boat that I bought in a charity shop quite a long time ago actually. It cost me 49p. And I think that would be St Peter's Hospice, looking at the colour of that label. I need to make it watertight. At the moment the water shoots in where the wheels are, and I should make it radio controlled or remote controlled. I might even do it infrared, because I can only really use this in the bath. I'll think about that, how I'm going to control it, but I'll just stick a couple of motors straight on the bottom in the water. I'll just glue them in place and make up some little propellers to go on them. And if we have 2 of them, we should be able to steer it by doing variable, whatever we call it, variable thrust, that's the word I'm trying to think of. Yeah, what's that? It's only about 10 inches long. It's only a tiny little boat. Right, taking the top off, taking the wheels out, and I've got bits of tape across there at the moment. So the idea is I'm just going to fill that with hot glue for now, I think. I was thinking of putting foam in there, but I'll just do hot glue. That'll be quick and easy. Next thing we need is a receiver, radio receiver. I was rather hoping to use this one. You can see I've actually soldered those motors onto the tags just to check it, but this receiver doesn't seem to work, which is probably why it was in my junk drawer. I think I may have just left it in there because those, are they MOSFETs? Or whatever, power transistors I like to call them. They look absolutely fine. I've tested it by shorting out the little, putting power to the transistors there to switch them on, and the motors do actually come on. But when I try and actually activate the receiver using the aerial and the transmitter, nothing happens. So I think we've got a problem somewhere in this area. The H-bridges themselves seem to work. Anyway, that's a bit of a waste of time, or a red herring. Can't get that receiver to work, so I've dug out this little car from my junk drawer. The reason this one's in the junk drawer is there's actually a broken gear in the gearbox there. So although it works, I don't know if you could hear it, there is actually a clicking going on there. So say there is a broken gear. I know I've taken this one apart before, and the reason it was in the junk drawer was to actually replace the gear. But what I think I'll do is I'll just pinch the receiver out of it and see if it's small enough to fit up here. Because that's why I'd got that one, because that one would fit in there very nicely with no trouble at all. So we'll see how big this one is. Disappointing, that receiver's bigger than I'd hoped. It's quite a wide block there. And it'll still fit in there at a bit of an angle, but I was hoping it would sit right up at the top of it. Never mind, that'll have to do. So we'll take that one out and wire that up. While I've got the receiver out, I'll just run through a couple of points I often get asked. The battery, in this case, is labelled ground, GND, and VCC. So GND is your negative, and VCC is your positive coming from your battery. And then the motors, that terminal is labelled L for left and R for right. And these terminals, B for backwards and F for forwards. So those two terminals are your drive motor, and those two terminals are your steering motor. Now on some receivers, the drive motor's got much bigger transistors here, MOSFETs, to take the heat and the power of the drive motor. This one's got the same size on the steering and the drive. This is your H bridge here, those ones. And that's the receiver chip, which I don't think we can see what's written on it. Might be able to, but I'm using my mobile phone to film this, so it might not be a sharp enough image. RX2C is it? I can't quite tell. Yeah, that's the receiver chip. Okay, so anyway, I'll solder up some wires to go to the motors and to the battery, and we'll tuck it into the boat. I've extended the wires to the motors. I've just got them under a bit of tape there so we can do a quick demonstration. So they work. And in case you're wondering, that little car cost me 50p, so I'm not too worried about stripping it down to use the components. That's the receiver tucked inside the whatever we call it, the bridge, I suppose. Wires going down. You can see I filled in the holes with hot glue, and we've got that small LiPo battery, so that will all fit in nicely under there, and we can reach the plug to switch it off. And then there's the two motors on the back. The blue tape is just there to hold it in place while I was putting the hot glue in the holes. So, just putting that together like that. So that's looking good. I'll have to make some little propellers now. I'll probably cut some out of some aluminium drinks can. I've just scribed that out using my dividers. Size, looking at the markings on my cutting mat, that's slightly less than 20mm. I just did it by eye. I should think that's about 18mm. But I'll use that as a guide to cut out a 3-bladed propeller. And I'll do 2 of them. I've cut the discs out. Now I need to cut them into 3 petals. That's the 3 petals. or three-bladed propellers. I'm hoping that the tiny little holes made by my dividers in the middle there will be a tight fit on the shaft, and then hopefully something like super glue will hold them in place. Obviously I need to twist them the right direction. I've put super glue on them. I don't know if that's going to hold, but I hope it will. And I've actually got them set up contra-rotating. I wanted them to be contra-rotating, but I wasn't sure whether I'd actually got it right. But it looks to me like I have. So now I need to twist them to give us the pitch. Now you can see I've twisted the pitch into them. So I'll go and run some water in the bath and see if it works. We'll try it in the bath. The octopus there is to try and help the camera maintain its focus, because just in the white bath the camera keeps trying to refocus. Right, that looks to me like we could do a bit of nose weight actually. Still, we'll let it go anyway. Oh yes, forwards. Whoa, this is a bit fast. That is ridiculously fast. And manoeuvrable. Well, apart from the fact that it's slightly unbalanced, it's tilting a bit to the left, but that's just because the battery's over on that side, I think. Looks like I made a better job of the left propeller than the right one. It's not making so much noise on the left. Yeah, we'll class that as a success. So, 2 motors out of vibrating toothbrushes, and we pinched a 27 megahertz. Yeah, 27 megahertz receiver out of a toy car. Job done.